I am super excited. We're going to steamroll ahead and jump straight into the first panel of the day. Our next presenter is Dr. Xiao Lu, who is an assistant professor and director of the Creative Technology and Industry Center in the Academy of Film and Creative Technology at Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University. Her current research focuses on the digital transformation of cultural production and consumption in the cultural and creative industries. Thank you so much, Lucia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today in this online event. Today, my presentation will be talking about reimagining Noja, the rise of virtual idols in new media production. I'm very pleased to be here to take this opportunity to share my recent working paper and welcome any feedback and comments from our audiences and the participants, and I'll be happy to have further discussion after this presentation. So for today's presentation, given the 10-minute slot, I would be happy to share the part of my working paper, which is an introduction and a theoretical framework. And particularly, I will talk about the evolution of Noja in media culture and the theoretical framework of transmedia storytelling in today's presentation. So for this page, I would like to briefly explain the reason why I'm going to talk about Noja. I think it's a very special year for Noja. Recently, we have a very interesting question. Have you seen Noja too in our workplace? And it's become a popular way of greeting people with colleagues and friends. And according to statistics, Noja 2 became the highest grossing animated film, and its box office taking surpassed 12.3 billion yuan by 18th of February this year. So which shows a very successful performance of Noja 2's box office. And behind the commercial success of Noja 2, there are some cultural and historical factors that raise my awareness and interest to explore the history and the culture tradition of Noja for the commercial success of Noja 2. Following the commercial success of Noja 2, Noja has become a very popular digital and animated character in China and overseas. Noja has become the virtual idol that has inspired new media production on social media platforms and merchandise studios. For example, a group of artists have used food to create a portrait of Noja on social media platforms. And another example is the toy company Pop Marts has created a bubble Mart Noja as part of their designer collection. Moreover, Noja has become a brand ambassadors to promote consumable goods such as toothpaste and milk tea. From the cases of Noja's new figure, we have learned the evolution of Noja from a Chinese mythological role to become a virtual idol in the marketplace. And it's a very interesting phenomenon of Noja evolved from a mythological role to a virtual idol, and what's the history and the cultural tradition of Noja over centuries, and how Noja has become a digital idol in the 21st century and in the digital culture. So the origin of Noja is from the mythological warrior, and Noja is worshipped in Chinese folk religion, and its figure is derived from the folk story, and also the figure is because it is portrayed as a mythological warrior in the folk story Naja conquers the Dragon King. And here's some pictures of Naja portrayed in some Chinese folk religion environments and context. In Chinese literature, Naja is portrayed as a mythological character, and the role of Naja is more popular in Chinese literature classics such as Fengshen Yanyi, Investiture of the Gods, and the Journey to the West. And Naja is always portrayed as a character, as a mythological character with superhuman powers, and which is also portrayed as a superhuman figures with 3 heads and 6 arms in Chinese literature. In Chinese theater, the mythological role Naja has also has a very popular image in the theatrical performance, and Naja is a warrior role to provide an imagination of Chinese mythology with power and bravery. In the 20th century, with the digital technology development, Naja has been presented in film and animation productions. In 1979, Naja was presented in the animation production Naja Conquers the Dragon King, which is one of the popular animations in the 1980s China. Later, the mythological character Naja has been adopted by Japanese productions, and it's become a popular digital animated characters in overseas productions as well. Naja appears in the Japanese manga Honsen Anji. The Japanese for Naja's name is Nadagu, and he's been portrayed as a aloof and blunt character in a Japanese manga production. So tracking the historical and cultural tradition of Naja, we have seen the historical and the cultural background of Naja evolved from a mythological warrior to a virtual idol, and gradually become a very popular digital figure on social media platforms and new media productions. And for this study, we have learned the history and the cultural tradition of Naja, and the theory of transmedia storytelling is perfectly suited for the study of Naja as a virtual idol. For example, we have some key scholars in exploring the theory of transmedia storytelling of Henry Jenkins, who's the first author to coin the term transmedia storytelling, and he defined the term as a process where story elements are systematically distributed across multiple media platforms to create a unified and coordinated entertainment experience. And he also indicated that a good transmedia franchise works to attract multiple constituencies by pitching the content somewhat differently in different media. And he also stressed the rating across the media sustains a depth of experience that motivates more consumption. So according to Henry Jenkins, we have learned the term of transmedia storytelling is always interplayed with content creation, audience consumption, and fandom practice. Besides Henry Jenkins, Christine Dina and Mizuko Ito has also developed the theory of transmedia storytelling. Christine Dina explored transmedia practice in particular. She theorized how fictional worlds are expressed across multiple media platforms, and she stressed the importance of practice in transmedia storytelling. And another key scholar, a Japanese scholar Mizuki Ito. She researched the youth media practices. In particular, she delves into the transmedia fandom practice and otaku culture. And the otaku culture plays a vital role in Japanese national identity at home and abroad. So finally, we have identified the research gap and asked a question of how is Naja as a virtual idol shaping new media production and consumption that link Chinese cultural identity with global youth entertainment trends. And the next we will discuss the question by using the semiotic analysis to discover more about the representation and interpretation of Naja in the following month. So I would like to receive any comments and feedbacks from our participants, and thank you for your attention, and feel free to get in touch with me, and happy to be here to present my research. Thank you. Over to you, Rachel.
Our final speaker in this first panel is Dr. Joleen Blom, who is a postdoctoral researcher in the Center of Excellence in Game Culture Studies at Tampere University Game Research Lab. She researches the commercialization of game characters and their effective roles in game and transmedia monetization models. Her current research focuses on parasocial relationships with game characters and their monetization in East Asian gacha games. I will hand over to Dr. Joleen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you for being here. I'll quickly share my screen here. You can see it, the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. That saves me some time. So I'm going to talk about virtual influencers. Well, initially I said in Japan, but I realized it's more like from Japan, and I'll specifically be talking about the voice actors in gacha games. Now, just a brief explanation on my research interest here that will probably explain where I come from in this presentation. I assume that I'm actually maybe the least connected to virtual influencers, or the least expert on virtual influencers, and that is because my research is on Japanese video games, transmedia storytelling, Japanese media mixes, game characters, and what I would call like transcultural character economies, like, as Rachel said, parasocial relationships, commercialization, and monetization of game characters. I also wrote a book on transmedia storytelling and characters, as you can see here. So I'm not necessarily a specialist in virtual influencer culture, but because it is so adjacent to it, I'm very interested in it. And I think that both studies, like both game studies, transmedia storytelling, and virtual influencer, I would call it studies for now, have a lot to gain by learning from each other. So without further ado, let's go into the idea of voice actors here. So the way I currently think of voice actors is as predecessors of virtual influencers. So basically, when there have been up to this point 3 booms of voice actor stardom in Japan, and the third wave occurred in the 1990s, more or less simultaneously with the rise of global popularity of anime. Now, voice actors initially had to hide their appearances as the naka no hito, so as the person on the inside of a character to bring it to life. So they were kind of this invisible soul of a character. But with that third wave of voice actors in the 1990s, they kind of rose to stardom, and they gained this visual presence through like magazines. And nowadays we see them deeply ingrained in the workings of Japanese media mixes, so transmedia, multimedia cultures, that we also know as like 2.5D culture, which I have no doubt you're familiar with. Parallel to this, over the past 15 years, the game industry, or the global game industries, went from a premium monetization model to a freemium monetization model. So instead of like buying a full finished game, The current dominant model is that a game is free to download, but then there are in-game purchases, which are often gambling-like. And the game itself is then constantly updated with new content to maintain player retention and attract new players. Now, this change of model occurred in East Asia ahead of the rest of the world. And it's especially gacha games, so free-to-play games with a focus on characters, originally from Japan, that are very important here. Since they are at least originally from Japan, they are very much part of these like Japanese media mixes as well. But this transmedial free-to-play monetization model is basically present across the entire East Asian region. It's currently China who has become the most dominant country in these gacha games. And one of the most important gacha games that we have currently is Genshin Impact. Maybe important isn't really the right word, but like dominant at least. Now, this game is a free-to-play game that uses Japanese anime aesthetics and free-to-play game monetization to attach users to the product. And the game is really good at showing how important I think voice actors are in the current game industry. And one of the things that I've been doing the past couple of years, or tried to do at least, it's still a work in progress, was that I tracked official English and Japanese voice actor content of Genshin Impact. And I did that until like July 24, and then I ran out of time. So the developer MiHoYo basically uses their YouTube channels to show players new and upcoming content. And they also use it to make special announcements about special events inside the game, which are temporary often. And that kind of reflects the free-to-play trend, where we see continuous special temporary events and streaming trends as well in current game culture. And voice actors are actually the hosts of these YouTube channels. So the English YouTube channel basically features the English voice actors as hosts in their special program videos. It's exclusive to this channel. And we usually see 2 to 4 English voice actors hosting a 40-minute video that announces then, where they announce new big updates of the game. We don't see the voice actors physically. Instead, they're represented by an avatar, this like chibi version of the character that they voice. So they're really not pretending to be the character. They perform in a way as themselves, as program hosts. So they kind of resemble these VTubers that we also see. There's no motion capture here going on for the videos. I think the avatars are drawn after the voice recording. Interesting to note is that most of these hosts, the main hosts, have their own gameplay streaming channels. The Japanese YouTube channel actually features their Japanese voice actors much more prominently. So they have 4 programs, these character combat instructions, gameplay streaming, cast interviews, and a radio program. None of these are live streams, by the way. And in the gameplay streaming channels, we see that voice actors play together in similar means as we often see game influencers doing. So they play here with the characters that they actually voice as their avatars within the game in promotion of Genshin Impact. But a little bit of a disclaimer here, this gameplay streaming this particular program hasn't been updated since October 22. So maybe it wasn't too popular. Then there is their radio program, which is their most extensive program. So at the time that I was like tracking these channels, they had almost 100 episodes of this radio show. They now only have 107 episodes, so the speed decreased somewhat, the speed of publication. Now in this radio program, the Japanese hosts, the voice actors, talk with other guest voice actors about the game and about their roles in the game. And they also give these new content updates, and they stream their gameplay of Genshin Impact as well. So during this show, you don't actually see the actors. You see them only represented in the figure of the character that they voice, which is basically a static image on the screen, as you see here. But sometimes they do deliberately play with the characters that they voice as the avatars during the game streaming that they do. And again, also here, it is notable that many of these hosts have their own gameplay streaming channels as well. So they're also influencers. So maybe you're wondering, like, how does this connect to virtual influencers, right? So I've been reading up on Dr. Esperanza Miyake's work, where she explains the virtual influencer as an influencer with an animated appearance that competes alongside human influencers. And I'm highlighting this particular sentence here, quote here, basically where she says, well, these virtual influencers multiply their virtuality by creating different immaterial forms that are transmedial, intertextual, and participatory because their ontological nature is different than that of humans. So they have this different ontological form than human influencers. This is my final slide. This is also the part where I have to say I'm still developing my ideas. This is very much a work in progress. I think that voice actors have a dual nature. So they're partially corporal and they're partially virtual, as you can tell from the Genshin Impact examples that I just showed. So they're in that sense both similar to and different from virtual influencers. So if you combine the current free-to-play game industry, that is a global game industry currently, with influencer culture and with voice actors, you see that the dual nature of the voice actor as both the soul of the character and a visible actor becomes a commodity that's used to promote a free-to-play game product in a manner that does resemble, that very much fits the current gaming and influencer culture. So these two cultures for me are very much combined. They're not really separate from each other. So we see that these voice actors are streamers. They tend to have their own channels where they promote the games that they worked on, but also just promote themselves. They're not live influencers like some virtual influencers like VTubers are, since the focus lies on their voices and their corporality of such. And most importantly, Dr. Miyake also already talked about transmedial mobility, and I think that the transmedial mobility of the voice actor lies in the characters that they voice. So the character proliferates, right? Just like the Kiara division that we have. And with that, they carry the voice actors with them as their soul. While most voice actors kind of end up voicing similar types of characters, they're still separate from the character image. So these two, while combined, are still a separate thing. The virtual influencer, on the other hand, I would say is stuck to their image. And in some cases, like VTubers, we might not actually even know who is voicing or is giving that soul to the influencer. I'm rounding up, no worry. So this basically applies to both the transmedia proliferation of a single character as well as to the other characters that they voice. And then they create this active character network with the voice actor that connects them all. I really have to put this argument into a better shape. But for now, my time is over. And so I'd like to thank you very much for your attention.